late doing my video on recovery, that is recovery from addiction to substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, my behaviour, equally addictive. People, places and things, and that translates to workaholic relationships, collecting. And these days I try not to go to extremes of behaviour, like drinking on a daily basis, and it's been some years now. And I am breathing a sigh of relief, actually, to be home just now, sober, and more informed about what is going on with me and my particular problems at the moment. So I've just been to the hospital, and I've got more hospital appointments due in the next month or so, to do with a fractured foot, and also to do with type 1 diabetes and clinical depression. So it's a difficult story, really, but the really interesting thing for me is that before I got to recovery from addiction, I was unaware of my clinical condition regarding my emotional state of depression, and it is a chemical imbalance, and I was alive long enough then to acquire type 1 diabetes from a virus rather than lifestyle, which was a bit of a shock, because I did have tests of every description, a full MOT, to see how I was when I stopped drinking, in order to diagnose what was wrong emotionally, which was causing the addiction, or rather just accepting that I was in recovery, whatever the reason. So these days it's about staying in balance as best one can for me, and finding how to be sober one day at a time. So I'm exhausted. I've been out and I've had to travel, which is not good when you've got fractures healing, and a difficult conversation for me with a consultant who I felt left me in the dark about my condition with regard to fractures in my foot and what I might do. So where am I now? This is about recovery, and you know, recovery is everything that we do on a daily basis. 35 years of drinking. First drink did do the damage. It changed the way I felt, and it covered up my fear, and it actually helped me suppress feelings for a long time, the real feelings, and learning how to deal with them. So what's my story, and how did I get into recovery? Well, simply moments of clarity around I could not do it on my own. Self-will had run riot to obsession, and I couldn't stop drinking. I became a 24/7 drinker in 2002, although the signs were there all my life that I was alcohol dependent. It took the edge off. It was there for conviviality, and it was there for sadness. It was my best friend when relationships failed. It was my best friend when I was a success. So I kept on striving and striving and striving for perfection in my ability to conduct myself in business and social life. So never satisfied with me, always trying to be perfect and look for the perfect work and the perfect relationship. And of course none of us are perfect, so setting myself up, if you like, for failure. So it's no wonder that I resorted to my best friend on many occasions when I was successful or not successful, or things just didn't go the way I felt they ought to go. So I've adjusted my expectations on a daily basis to cover my needs and deal with wants, and ask myself, how much do I want this? How much do I need this? So I need sobriety. Sobriety is the bedrock of what happens, and I needed to find people who could keep me sober. So the options were limited, and still remain so for me, but there are options. But the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, gave me the starting point to start to understand what it's like to live sober, because here was a fellowship of people from a few hours sober to decades sober continuously, who had ideas, wisdom to share, and experience of life in recovery. And I know in my early days I thought there must be a secret inner sanctum where we would return to safe drinking. And of course the answer is, once we have a taste for oblivion, or the extremes of behaviour, or the extremes of emotion, what happens if we relapse and start drinking again? Well, we are chasing that old feeling, and it's the same with any addiction to either any substance or behaviour, and that's why it's called self-harming, and it's not easy to deal with. So these days I try very carefully to work out what is right for me. And sometimes when I don't know what to do, or I'm not sure, I consult my friends in fellowship, or I go to a professional. And this morning I had to go to a professional. But here I share about how does AA help me. I'll share the AA statement of intent and a reading, which is all about false pride and the choices we have in recovery, which is very appropriate, really. Anyway, the statement of intent about AA: I don't speak for AA, never can, never will, never want to. It's full of unique, authentic people, some of whom are friends of mine, and it's anonymous, so we choose where we speak and how we speak and where we speak. It's a personal choice. There are no rules, there are suggestions. So here is the AA statement of intent. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety as best we can, just for a day. And I share here the daily reflections, 1 page a day, all about the 12 steps of action to change our attitude and behaviour on a daily basis. And I just want to share what it says on April 23rd, which was written, one sentence here, which is: AA is not a cure-all. It would be a product of false pride to claim that AA is a cure-all, even for alcoholism. And this is Bill Wilson, one of the co-founders, who said this. In my early years of sobriety, I was full of pride, thinking that AA was the only source of treatment for a good and happy life. It certainly was the basic ingredient for my sobriety, and even today, with over 12 years in the programme, and I'm nowhere near that. I am very involved in meetings, sponsorship and service. During the first 4 years of my recovery, I found it necessary to seek professional help, since my emotional health was extremely poor. There are those folks too who have found sobriety and happiness in other organisations. AA taught me that I had a choice to go to any lengths to enhance my sobriety. AA may not be a cure-all for everything, but it is the centre of my sober living. And for me, it is the centre of my sober living. And because I'm sober, and I couldn't really understand what the consultant said to me last week, I was already listening for good news, which was, I'm healing. But I didn't get the answers I needed, because in the letter which came from the hospital, this one, there's a 5-point action plan, which involves me. Now, I've been following the action plan, but we didn't discuss it last week. So I was in the dark about some things to do with what is possible and not possible. And it's not possible for me to just throw down my walking sticks and run for my life. That's not ever going to happen. So I had to then get in touch with them and write the action plan again on 1 page, and then write my concerns about what to do next to keep myself well. So there was a consultant with all the information, highly intelligent, and unable to give me all the information because he just assumed that I heard it all. I didn't. And I don't think he actually shared everything. We never talked about the 5-point plan, or 5 plans. So these days I learn that I need to listen for everything, and if I'm not sure, go back and find out. So I have, and I've got a lot to be patient about. So false pride, no. Go back, find out. Humility, share my concerns, and I did. So that serenity prayer, which I share at the end of the videos, to God or good conscience, helps me every day make better choices. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference is, for me, just for today. Time is just coming up to 9 o'clock in the morning. My video is all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My substance, alcohol, my behaviour. Trying to please people, full of fear for a lot of the time, putting on a brave face and trying to live, I guess, with a very brittle ego rather than courage, faith and confidence or self-esteem. And I guess along the way I met a lot of people who were looking for people to be perfect in the roles that they had, either in business or in family or in partnership, or at least that's what I thought. And in business, obviously, perfection was where everybody aimed in order to get the best result, and the best result often meant how we were paid, how we were able to cope with our environment, and whether we were making more and more profits. And in this time of catastrophic recession, and a budget yesterday in the UK which left nobody very happy at all, I guess we have to do the best we can. And part of what helps me as a recovering addict or recovering alcoholic is to acknowledge I can only be recovered for one day, and I know I'm recovered for one day when I go to sleep without a drink. So my videos simply are really about how to get back into recovery if you've been out for a while, or how to get into recovery if you have an addiction to either substance or behaviour. And for me, the cornerstone of my recovery was not only getting the right medical advice and professional help, it was then how do I sustain this for any period of time. So I went to AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and my first few meetings left me gasping for a drink because I couldn't understand what was going on. And I wasn't really all that teachable in those early days. I was still in the conundrum of self-will run riot, self-obsession, fear beyond imagination, and not wanting to wake up every morning. That's what it was like. And I guess anybody who's found themselves in that situation really, really looks either to stop waking up or try and find a solution. So moving from the problem to solution, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, has provided me with sustainable one-day recovery, daily recovery, one day long. So the graduation time is when it is bedtime, and we start again in the morning. So there we go, how it works for me. So I go to one of many meetings a day in London, up to 600, and at the beginning of every meeting of AA there's a preamble shared, and I may share all the tools of the trade, if you like, for the fellowship. I don't speak for it, I just speak about my experience, strength and hope, and how it works for me. No one speaks for AA. It's a leaderless organisation with trusted servants who do the bit which is necessary to keep things going across borders and understand the traditions of the fellowship. So the preamble goes like this. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And that last sentence where it says our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety is pretty much what I'm trying to do here as well. And it's for me, I need to do these things. It's part of my meditation and sharing, if you like. It's to be included in the world rather than excluded and isolated. So, you know, open, honest and willing is part of the format of life for me as best I can. I'm never going to be perfect at it. And there are 12 action steps in the programme, and 12 steps, 12 months. In the literature, Daily Reflections, this one, it covers one step a month basically, and April is step 4 obviously, and it's all about a fearless moral inventory where we try to be open, honest and willingly look at what we've done with our lives, do a fresh appraisal if you like against our assets and liabilities, to pick out where the resentments are against ourselves and maybe other people, and then learn how to be forgiving, that we are all human and we need to understand where we are. Not so for politicians, obviously, in our country, because most people don't believe a word of what has just happened in the budget yesterday. And I smile because I think the person speaking is believing their own stuff. Anyway, same thing here. April 23, it says AA is not a cure-all. Yes, it can't save or cure. It would be a product of false pride to claim that AA is a cure-all, even for alcoholism.
In my early years of sobriety, I was full of pride, thinking that AA was the only source of treatment for a good and happy life. It certainly was the basic ingredient for my sobriety, and even today, with over 12 years in the programme, and I'm nowhere near that, I'm just a day at a time, me, I'm very involved in meetings, sponsorship and service. During the first 4 years of my recovery, I found it necessary to seek professional help, since my emotional health was extremely poor. There are those folks too, who have found sobriety and happiness in other organisations. AA taught me that I had a choice to go to any lengths to enhance my sobriety. AA may not be a cure-all for everything, but it is the centre of my sober living. And for me, definitely, it's the centre of my sober living. And sometimes I forget to turn off Messenger, and it makes noises. But, you know, is there such a thing as a cure-all? Well, I haven't found it. Actually, I thought drink was my cure-all, because it took away the fear, the pain, and it put me in a place of isolation and exclusion, which was better because I didn't know how to cope with life too well, and my relationships were always a bit rocky and a bit short term, and I guess that was down to my outlook created by my upbringing. And you know, when I look at it now, I don't want to blame anybody about that, because in step 4 what we really start to see is, as we point the finger at somebody else like that, like that, there's 3 pointing right back at me. So I have to acknowledge my part in it. I was there to participate in what was going on, and I just didn't understand the choices I had, and that was around fear. So trying to be included, trying to be a part of, people pleasing probably put me in harm's way more often than not. I'm in my 50s and I'm still learning how to do this. And you know, Gandhi said something. He said an emphatic no is better than a half-hearted yes, and that's something I'm learning on a daily basis. Sometimes I keep saying yes when I mean no. It's a bit like that character, yes but no but, yes but no but. And am I bothered? And the answer is I am bothered sometimes at my inability to say no, because I feel guilty. And these days I just try and do a better job of it. And I can quote Gandhi and say an emphatic no is better than a half-hearted yes. And the simple answer is, just because we look idle or not doing something doesn't mean another person can exploit our time and energy. So going on to As Bill Sees It, which I love because it's you know, the people who wrote these things, when it says not a cure-all and it's about responsibility, it was actually pointing out that AA need change or it will die. So it needs to change with where society is, community, family, outlooks, attitudes and civilization. And as we're going towards the truth, we're probably on a better wicket. Anyway, the benefits of responsibility, page 84. Happily, AA's per capita expenses are very low. For us to fail to meet them would be to evade a responsibility beneficial for us. Most alcoholics have said they had no troubles that money would not cure. We are a group that, when drinking, always held out a hand for funds. So when we commenced to pay our own service bills, this is a healthy change. Because of drinking, my friend Henry had lost a high-salaried job. There remained a fine house with a budget 3 times his reduced earnings. He could have rented the house for enough to carry it, but no, Henry said he knew that God wanted him to live there, and he would see if the costs were paid. So Henry went on running up bills and glowing with faith. Not surprisingly, his creditors finally took over the place. Henry can laugh about it now, having learned that God more often helps those who are willing to help themselves. And you know what, that's really interesting with the budget we've had. You know, if we do cut our cloth to suit our needs and what we have, we probably are better at understanding our emotional, spiritual and physical well-being, and being honest and open does a lot. So fellowship for me keeps me honest as best I can, and I'm only making progress, because we all have denials in us and we all have filters around how we live. So to make it work for me, I look for serenity in that serenity prayer, which says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, which in my case is a bit of poverty, courage to change the things I can, that is, make best use of what is, and the wisdom to know the difference, and that happens on a daily basis with a bit of good fortune and a bit of support and inclusion. This is all about AA and recovery. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership.
We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution. It does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And it's early, it's only 10 to 7 in the morning here. So I haven't had much sleep, and I'm still on this quest with my diabetic control to get down to the manageable figures. And I'm afraid it's high again this morning, and that's partly because it was very low yesterday. So I'm having a bit of a yo-yo effect with my blood sugars, so they're oscillating between 30 and 3, or 3 and 30, depending on what I've been doing. And that involves exercise, eating, and stress, and all the things associated with modern life. And also trying to keep up with a self-managed program when I've got a memory like a sieve. So it can be quite difficult, and I'm trying my best. But I have to be off early this morning to go get some blood tests before the queues get too big, so hence the early video. I don't speak for AA, I speak for myself, and the other thing I've reminded myself of, when I'm doing chairs in meetings of the fellowship, a chair is just speaking first. I need to remind myself about similarities and not differences. Look for similarities in my story of how I got into recovery, and the differences don't help. There can be differences how people get here, but the most important thing is doing something about being well and being part of a fellowship which keeps us on a straight path. Well, maybe straight in some instances, but sometimes it bends and weaves, because it's not easy to get into recovery. And I've been reading this book, Practicing the Power of Now, just bits of it. I've decided that trying to read whole chunks of books and then put things into practice is impractical. So I first need to be able to identify with it, which is what AA is all about as well. And it says here, page 29, watch out for any kind of defensiveness within yourself. What are you defending? An illusory identity, an image in your mind, a fictitious entity. By making this pattern conscious, by witnessing it, you disidentify from it. In the light of your consciousness, the unconscious pattern will then quickly dissolve. This is the end of all arguments and power games, which are so corrosive to relationships. Power over others is weakness disguised as strength. True power is within, and it's available to you now. So, in other words, if you're getting your choices right, and you're not trying to be bigger or smaller than somebody else, or defer, or put your identity stamp on others, then you can start concentrating on yourself and being in the here and now. And as you might have noticed from my videos, it's all about making life work in this one moment. And what we bring to this one moment is a whole collection of stuff, which is to do with our ego and feeling defensive and fearful, and also from our courage, faith, and confidence, which is just being right-sized in the day with everybody. We can get defensive if we hold on to old ideas, and we can get defensive if we're trying to defend where we're headed and we don't know where it is. So it's a bit of a conundrum, often just trying to be in the here and now. And I had a really good conversation with somebody who has supplied me with a piece of music as a backing track to these videos, and I quite like it, and I'm going to share it. So that's good news, and I have great gratitude for somebody taking the time and trouble to add something to these videos, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it turns out. As I say, my blood sugars have been all over the place, so I'm going for blood tests this morning, and then we can see how things are, or I can. Daily reflections for today, from this book, by AA people, for AA people, and it says for April 23rd, AA is not a cure-all. Alcoholics Anonymous is not a cure-all. It would be a product of false pride to claim that AA is a cure-all, even for alcoholism, as Bill sees it, page 285. In my early years of sobriety, I was full of pride, thinking that AA was the only source of treatment for a good and happy life. It certainly was the basic ingredient for my sobriety, and even today, with over 12 years in the program, I am very involved in meetings, sponsorship and service. During the first 4 years of my recovery, I found it necessary to seek professional help, since my emotional health was extremely poor. There are those folks too who have found sobriety and happiness in other organisations. AA taught me that I had a choice to go to any lengths to enhance my sobriety. And AA may not be a cure-all for everything, but it is the centre of my sober living. And in essence it is for me too, because what the program does for me, it frees me from self-obsession, the bondage of self, and enables me to deal with the day as it is, and to experience the day without using too much or utilising too much of my history to imagine what the day ought to be, or to try and enhance it by imagining what it could be. It's better to be in the day and living it. And the 12-step program of AA is all about doing that. So, it's marvellous how all these things come together. As Bill sees it, and this is from page 141, restore us to sanity. Few indeed are the practicing alcoholics who have any idea how irrational they are, or, seeing their irrationality, can bear to face it. For example, some will be willing to term themselves problem drinkers, but cannot endure the suggestion that they are in fact mentally ill. They are abetted in this blindness by a world which does not understand the difference between sane drinking and alcoholism. Sanity is defined as soundness of mind, yet no alcoholic soberly analysing his destructive behaviour, whether the destruction fell on the dining room furniture or his own moral fibre, can claim soundness of mind for himself. And so true, in active addiction we are mad, absolutely driven mad by desire for more of what we need. And that is the nature of addiction. So it's no wonder that step 2 talks about being restored to sanity, that a power greater than us. And what we choose that power to be is a personal choice. Some people see it God, some people see it good conscience, some people see it as the wisdom of the fellowship and what we learn from others in recovery by listening and being a part of. And some have bizarre ideas of what their higher power might be. But whatever it is a personal choice, and we must not trample on it ever, because it is all about freedom of choice and the right to make this one day work as best we can. Be level with ourselves and others. And coming on to the 24-hour day book, this one I haven't had time to read it in recent days. I've been trying to cram too much into my videos. Anyway, for April 23rd, men and women keep coming into AA, licked by alcohol, often given up by doctors as hopeless cases. They themselves admitted they were helpless to stop drinking. When I see these men and women get sober and stay sober over a period of months and years, I know that AA works. The change I see in people who came into AA not only convinces me that AA works, but it also convinces me that there must be a power greater than ourselves which helps us make that change. Am I convinced that a higher power can help me to change? And the answer for me is most emphatically yes. And the higher power is part of a state of consciousness, or being detached from the day-to-day, which enables us to see the world as it is, and our part in it, sometimes just minuscule, in a great big universe of stuff going on. And last night I was privileged to hear a chair by somebody I've known for 1 or 2 years now, and I don't know how many times I've heard parts of their story, but in a general way the essence of what they had to say was, it doesn't matter how clever we are intellectually or emotionally, an addict finding a substance will want it more and more and more, and be completely mad and driven insane by needing it. And the absolute truth is, with support and help from others, we find a path where sobriety and recovery reside, and we can be a part of that, if only we can keep ourselves in the day and in recovery. Anyway, more later.